Hello, my name is Saba. I am a senior at WHSAD, and I work with Janet. And our project is called the Bushwick Gem.
Hello, my name is Janet, and I'm a senior at WHSAD. And along with my partner Saba, we're going to be presenting our project, the Bushwick Gem, that we have been working on for the past several months. The main purpose of this project was to focus on designing the interior of the ground floor and first floor and create a flexible and resilient place. This project is where we are able to collaborate as a group that consists of us getting the knowledge of growing an idea and design for the activation building.
During the mid-20th centuries, the city policymakers actually ignored North Brooklyn, and many ways were moved to the area. And even during 1980s, it was even proposed to tear down Williamson Bridge to save up some maintenance costs. But during the 1980s and 1990s, many of the musicians and artists moved into the area, which became a hotbed of creativity and innovation.
Bushwick is a working-class neighborhood in the northern part of New York City borough in Brooklyn. Its population is the city's 35th most diverse neighborhood since 2007. Most of the residents in Bushwick are Latino American citizens, which makes Bushwick the most populous Hispanic American community in Brooklyn.
And trying to find the images for the Bushwick Gem, we focused on the industrial style stores, and main emphasis was placed on natural beer finishes and materials. On the first floor, we are planning on adding several programs such as pharmacy, clothing store, perfume store, juice bar, jewelry store, and gym. These programs will reflect the neighborhood of Bushwick as a whole and provide people with different interests to come to the Bushwick Generator and enjoy and buy whatever they want. We believe the variety of programs will truly bring the community as a whole, and Bushwick Gem can become the symbol of Bushwick and North Brooklyn. Also, to access the first floor, there is an elevator, and there's also a stairs there.
Here we have a picture of the design of the restaurant, where we want to go with. Having an industrial restaurant with wide open spaces with large dining areas are the highlight of such a restaurant. So the things needed for the restaurant was square tables, banquet style chairs, kitchen, a cash register, sinks, washing equipment, shelving, and oven. This is the floor plan of the restaurant, which is located in the ground floor. The restaurant will be designed in the industrial style and will mainly consist of Spanish food based on the fact that there is a large Hispanic community in the Bushwick area. So the restaurant will include separate rooms like the kitchen, storage room, staff room, bathrooms for men and women, as well as private dining area, which will be separate from the main dining area using the wall. There will be two reception areas because there are two main openings, as you can see on the outside of the restaurant. So in addition, there will be a small place reserved outside the restaurant, which we mainly serve as the dining area. So here we have our restaurant elevation, which shows different viewpoints of the interior and exterior of the restaurant. As you can see, we have the dining area in the middle and a reception desk near the main opening of the restaurant. Finally, we have our elevations of the bookstore. We have the shelves for the books and furniture to sit and relax. To make the bookstore more exciting, we decided to create a small cubicle shaped like a hexagon where people can sit and relax in the bookstore. Both elevations were worked on in AutoCAD by rendering and adding materials in order to have our final design.
This is super exciting. I think what you have started to do is really create a very consistent story about the material from the inside outside and the qualities what Bushwick presents from the past into the present, and then bringing that into the building with all the kind of different program components. But I also like where you're getting at with your layouts, and we're seeing the trend right now that a lot of things are moving towards like markets and open that have different programmatic offerings that then can be shared in a more public setting. And like the lounge area, for example, on the ground floor between the two different front programs which was shared. I think that is a really interesting model that we're seeing and that you're proposing here. Because that always gives you that kind of public space between the private spaces that creates a whole mixing between the one people that have a drink, the other ones that eat, the next ones who go shopping, they run through to the pharmacy, right? So that it create positive friction between people, so that they meet each other, that they maybe become friendly, become friends, maybe later on do things together, but accidental kind of meetings, opportunities. So there's a lot in here. And then I'm also very excited about your computer skills. This looks awesome. These are great spaces.
I was also impressed by the presentation, as with the previous one on the graphics. And I particularly liked the fact that you included a population analysis, or just a summary, like who lives here, who are the people that are going to be able to take advantage of your project. I have some questions for you. I was also impressed by your concept about the industrial look of the spaces. How did you come up with the different uses? The bookstore, the restaurant, particularly clothing, perfume, gym or cell phone store. And how did you find, I'm curious, how did you find all those prototype images?
We did some research around the stores near Bushwick as well as around the New York City, and based on that, so what items goes inside each store, how they look, and different information about them. We recorded, we compared, and then we decided what was to be used and what to be not used.
Extremely impressive CAD skills and presentation skills. I also noticed the very apt reference images you were using. You know, any one of those would be appropriate for the building from a design aesthetic and from the use of the materials. So, you know, great work on that, and, you know, very thoughtful. And I also, you know, echoing Matthias's comments, you know, the selection of materials and how you thought through, you know, bringing in the inside out and putting the time in to think through uses as relates to the historic context of other industries in the neighborhood is very thoughtful, and I think it's overall phenomenal work. These are all,
Thank you so much.
they're all professional grade presentations. So you obviously you have great teachers, but everybody should be very proud of themselves. I mean, this is the kind of work product I would expect from someone with a few years of experience, and you guys should be very, very proud at the quality of the work that you've done here. Very impressive.
So one thing from the data that you had up front, where you had the city placing the waste transfer in the neighborhood just to change the thinking about it, it may have been in reaction to sanitation no longer collecting waste from commercial businesses, but actually these were private facilities that chose private properties. So the information, I wouldn't agree with what you have in that part of the presentation. I really love some of the images you pulled together, like seeing the image that had the trucks and the cars with even the turning radius, understanding that vehicles need to get out of a building or into a building, into a street width. I think that was great. The images that showed the vertical cores with the bathrooms. I really like the idea of splitting each use into its own slide, because number one, you get a bigger picture. So we could certainly appreciate what you're putting in that photograph and understanding your vision for the spaces. The restaurant layout, again, I liked seeing, you know, with the tables and everything. The one thing I would put out, depending if you're evolving into careers in architecture, is, so when you look at bathrooms these days, well, first of all, based on maybe not the best policies, having men and women's bathrooms of the same size, you probably don't want to do that unless you don't have a choice. You'd rather favor more space for women. And also today you're seeing really creative concepts where you're having unisex bathrooms. I actually once went into a bathroom where there was a door for males and doors for female. You ended up in the same space, and then you had your stalls or whatever. So it's just something to think about. And just the first time ever, I've seen people indicated in sections, but never looking down in a plan view. So I kind of liked the people that you added to kind of show a sense of scale to the spaces. I will critique you though on the training room where the bathrooms and stores, showers, they're very linear. So if you think about the door swing, if the door swing is a scaling element, right, to me, a door swing is going to be about 3 feet. So when you look at the width of the room and you look at the door swing, you got to keep going. There you go. You kind of have no room but to walk in the room and out. There's not going to be room for fixtures. So if the door swing is of scale, your rooms are too narrow. If the door swings are not of scale, then putting a door swing that's not of scale gives a wrong impression that a space actually does work. And that's it.
Thank you for the feedback.
Maybe I could also just add one more thing. I very much like how you structured the presentation from, general, this is the site, this is the population, these are the access points to the site, to, space allocations, then to your 2D plans, and finishing off with the 3D and more like immersive experience, which was great to see. What I think would have helped your presentation, especially of these 2D plans, is a bit more explanation of some of the choices you've made. And we've seen it, for example, in the bookstore in that next slide, you've cut off the corners sometimes, or in the clothing store, you decided to round the corners and make it actually a very symmetrical layout, as opposed to the gym, which is asymmetrical. And so I thought those were, clearly you've made some choices here with that X-shaped storage space, the fact that the interior is more open and you put everything else on the outside of the clothing store. Those are all choices that you've made that when you do a presentation, it's helpful to actually walk us through. And I'm not saying you have to do that now retroactively, but more like for your future presentations. You might know why you decided to round these corners, but it's always interesting for people to find out what you were thinking when you did that.
Just one more thing, if you could go to the history slide at the beginning. Richard actually pointed out something, and I want to also say something on that. About the waste transfer stations and the lack of investment in North Brooklyn, and just point out that I don't believe it was the city that located the waste transfer stations. Here we go. In North Brooklyn, it was there were waste transfer stations along the Greenpoint and Williamsburg waterfront, where today we have housing there. And it's hard today to imagine that 25, 30, 40 years ago, land had so little value that people used it to transfer waste there privately. Carters dumped it there, sorted through it, and sent it out again on trucks. The city has its own facilities. There is certainly, you can argue for environmental justice concerns about where those facilities are located, but not with that kind of arbitrary, even back then, that the city would on purpose take advantage of a community in this fashion. And I don't believe that the Williamsburg Bridge ever was slated or thought about as being taken down. I think there were some real maintenance issues with the Williamsburg Bridge. Our city was a much different city economically speaking 40, 50 years ago. We had, even now, we're much better off financially as a city. But back then, they were literally looking for money to help fix and paint the bridges to keep them in working order. And at one point, they even had to close some of the bridges because they were deemed too dangerous, and had to do emergency repairs on them to allow them to open. But I don't think at any time were there plans to actually tear it down. So just
it was debated though. It was a public messaging that we might not have a choice.
Right, but you'd have to replace it with something, right?
At that time, when the statement came out, they were just dumbfounded, and then somehow they figured out how to budget to incrementally fix it.
Okay.
I think they got a lot of backlash when that statement got released that they might have to tear it down.
Okay. All right, so I'm learning something.